Thank you so much for the invitation. So essentially, my journey is that of, you may not relate to it immediately, but possibly might be the story of your mother or grandmother. I'm an immigrant. I came to this country after having an arranged marriage. Arranged marriages are different from forced marriages. I was very happy to be married. I married an academic. I moved to this country. For those who've seen my Chef's Table episode, you will see I talk about loneliness. And the thing is that, I was a stranger, which you all are not. You are, you've been born in this country, most of you, and you have friends, you've got a school, you've got a network. I was an outsider. But the thing is, I realized one thing that, you can be an outsider even if people consider you part of the same group. The fact that you are on the fringes of any group, that you don't feel that you belong, that you don't feel you fit in. This was for me a very strong feeling, but then I came from outside and I struggled a lot. It was very difficult, and for all of you, I know you're all very young, much, much younger than me, younger than my children as well. You can't imagine there was a time when you couldn't call home. So I couldn't call India. You couldn't call Pakistan, any of these countries easily. It was very expensive. Travel was very expensive. And essentially you were cut off. Now if people tell me, that they are lonely or they miss their home or you can WhatsApp your cat, your dog in Delhi. It's very cheap. But for us, it was very hard, for that generation of women who came to this country with no roots. I had to create a connection. I had to create a group that I could relate to. And I can just tell you one thing. I wasn't even sure what I was trying to do. Now, when I look back, I know what I'm doing. But I can share this with you so that you know this kind of isolation that all of us are going through, where we've been cut off from, friends, from family. Often many of us have not been seeing our grandparents and parents. Uh, it kind of feels disconnected. You suddenly feel that, you're not sure what you're doing in your life. All the kind of dark shadows that were hidden come out in the forefront. You feel you're not, are you making a difference? You're not sure where your life is going to go. Everything that was familiar to you stopped. I have been through that more than once in the last 30 years, where everything that was familiar and things that I got comfort from stopped. And I have come from a country which has seen curfews, floods. We were stuck in our home with no food because there was water everywhere. There was no electricity. So I think that for me, the kind of lockdown was less traumatic, but I was watching the effect on my children. This is that generation, all your generation, who've never seen where all your rights have been kind of limited. Your right to go out, your right to go to the cinema, your right to go to the shop, to the mall, to hang out with your friends, even the right to go to school has been taken away from you. So it is a big thing. It is a big thing because it happened a lot to me when I was growing up for different reasons, not because of a pandemic, but for different reasons. We had to stay at home and couldn't go to school. And then there was no communication, but you do have communication. And it's so nice that, some of you have actually logged in, others will watch it later on Facebook, that you actually have facilities like this where you can actually listen to other people, hear stories and know that, hear, how other people are coping. And, you are connected to each other, and please do talk to each other, reach out to people. I realized very early on, and this was difficult. I had no mentoring. There was none of this kind of organization that cared about how I felt. I grew up in a very traditional family. My birth was not celebrated. There was a preference in a very patriarchal society in which I was raised for boys. My birth was lamented. And I don't remember who told me or what happened, but I always knew. I knew very early on, I was not the one that people wanted. And this kind of left me feeling very, very rejected, feeling pushed to one side. But there are two ways when something like this happens to you. When people either mock you because of the way you look, who you are, I remember this with my, listening to children in school. I was a governor in a state primary school for 10 years, where people would come and tell me that, they tell me I smell of curry, that my lunchbox smells, that my bag smells, my coat smells. And, it doesn't matter, how old you are or what your background was. There's something very, 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 similar in that feeling of being othered, of being pushed to the side and made to feel you don't fit in. Never, ever, ever let anyone else tell you who you are. This is really important. When people ask me, oh, you're an immigrant business, you're a Muslim, restaurant owner for female one. And I let that pass, but there is no box big enough in which you can put me. I will not allow any other person to label me, because that is where the difficulties lie, because they will label you based on their prejudice. And I realized when I came to this country that I need to do something, because I learned a lesson when I was very young, when I was being made to feel less wanted, made to feel I was not valued. I realized that there was one way to crush this. Either I get crushed myself, and that I feel really, really dejected, depressed, and I feel that I'm a failure, and I internalize all of this, or I set the world on fire. That I would go out and prove to everyone how wrong they were, that I was someone who counted, that my birth mattered, that I mattered. And, and it's not my immediate family. My mother loved me a lot. And, my parents were very supportive. I had really nice siblings. I was very close to my brother and my sister. My brother was born 3 years after me. But what it did is that in extended families, I was much darker, much fatter than my sister, who looked like a movie star. She still does. People always say, oh, she must be much younger than you. She's much older than me, but she looks amazing. And, it was what other people made you feel, made you feel small, made you feel less valuable. I would close my eyes and imagine my name in lights, my entire name. I would see Asma Khan in lights, that I was going to be something someday. I was going to be someone incredible. But my other great dream was for every person who was othered and pushed aside, I was going to take them with me. So it wasn't just that I needed to break my chains. I can never be free if I can see people in chains. So that drove me a lot in everything I did. I studied law. I did a PhD in law. And, it was embarrassing and awkward because everyone was like, you want to cook? Everybody can cook. You're a lawyer and, you should go on and do something great in your life. But for me, what was going to be something that gave me pleasure, I listened to the voice inside. I was always seen as the not that attractive looking, but very smart kid. People had put me in that box of being a smart kid. I did law to impress everybody else. I did my PhD, yes, because I wanted to do the subject. It's very hard to do a PhD unless you're driven to it. Do not let others push you into playing a role you don't want to play. This is your life. That stage is yours. Go play the role that your heart is telling you to play. That is when you will come out as a winner. It's, our society is really strange. And this is not a cultural thing. Every culture does this. So it's not just, South Asian or you come from every background because of the way you look or the way you do in school or the way you're physically built, because you're fast, you're good at football, you're good at this. This thing that you're good at this, you're bad at that. People put the labels on you and that's what you think you are. That is not what you are. You are exactly what you want to be. And that is when you will succeed. That fire to make a difference for me was driven by the fact that I felt that, it was always the case that I was being, put in one corner as the smart, efficient, organized person. And, there was a time when, anything needed to be done. And my sister would get up and I would say, no, 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 you sit, let her do it. And, at that time, it made me feel very nice. Oh yeah, I'm so organized, I'm so smart. But then I know, and I know as a matter of fact, my sister did much better than me in school. She was brilliant. She also suffered because of the way she looked, because of what people thought she was. She was this pretty, beautiful, graceful, doll-like person who was so graceful, and everybody thought, put her in front of all the situations where you needed someone with great manners. She spoke much better than I did. And but I know she would absolutely, wipe the floor with me when it came to maths. Her English was much better, highly, extremely entertaining person. She never got a chance to shine. She never got a chance to shine because she was always seen as, just pretty. And this is why it works both ways. And, don't do this to your friends as well. Try and open your heart to others who may look different from you, who may come from a different background. You think, oh my God, that person is so working class or that person is so posh. Forget all of that. Forget all of that, because it is so, so important that you do not allow others to tell you who you are. And for me, it's really strange because, in India, there's a lot of discrimination when it comes to caste. In the Muslims, it's not there, but it's there in the Hindu community. People often don't eat with each other. They don't share the same table. They don't share the same food. And food is often used as a way of dividing people. You eat this, I don't like you. I'll shun you because, you eat meat or you eat vegetables or you eat that. And I come from a country where people die of hunger. And I think that everybody, I hope, after this pandemic, when there was a shortage, not just of toilet paper, my God, the way people were fighting over it, you think, are they crazy? But there was shortage of eggs, there was shortage of flour. And, people kind of suddenly realized that it is not their right to go out and buy something, to order something online. All my friends are flapping around saying, oh, I can't get a delivery slot from the supermarket. So everything you thought was normal was shaken. But for us, we know that for us, hunger is not relentless, nor is thirst. We can get water, we can eat. And I've always found that problematic that, in India, people always discriminated, didn't share the table with them. And my dream doing the law degree and also later on my PhD was that I was going to use food as a tool of communication. As an immigrant, when I came to this country, the food was shocking. In the restaurant I went to an Indian restaurant, someone took us. I was like, what is this? Why is the rice multicolored? It was just a shock. I really found that really bizarre, the food that it's still a bit strange in some of the restaurants, the what they pass off as Indian food. But I realized that people didn't understand me. They thought they know what I am. They thought they understand my food by looking at the color of my skin and my accent. But they had their prejudices. And I always felt that I want people to sit down on a table and eat with me because I won't let you hate me because of the color of my skin, because of my Muslim name, my accent, my age, my size. I will not allow you to be prejudiced and hate. You need to sit down on the table with me. I need you to eat my food. I want to tell you my stories. I want to tell you who I am. I want you to enjoy my food. The food is an extension of who I am and my cultures. For generations, this food has come down from families. And, for all of you who are from different backgrounds, your grandparents may be from different countries. Your parents may have migrated, even if it's 3-4 generations away. There is food that you eat that is of the land where your parents and grandparents came from. That is important. That is part of your legacy. That is part of who you are. It is your DNA. And for me, food became that. And I've realized that, I could be a lawyer and, set up, a legal center and help women. But I realized that I can use food as a tool to make people understand people who look like me, who are like me, who sound like me. So that, at least next time you sit next to a tube, in the tube, when all of us eventually get back on the tube, and you can see people's faces because now everyone's wearing a mask. But that time will come when everything will be over. And you sit next to someone who may look like me, but you've eaten my food, you know my story. You may not flinch, even if that person's coat is smelling of masala. Don't flinch. Look at them in the eye. Because I say this all the time, how is it that our food is so popular? Everybody loves to go and have, chicken tikka masala. People love to go and have doner kebab. But they take the food. You cannot just take the food. You need to take me too. You need to understand I come with the food. Do not separate food and culture. This happens a lot. We should not allow it. And that's one of the things that I put down. This is why I'm so happy that I have been able to set up a business like Darjeeling Express. It is a kitchen which has got, all women and all home cooks, just like me. So, I never call myself a chef. People call me a chef. I sometimes let it pass. I said, okay, you can call me a chef. But I don't call myself a chef. I always call myself a cook. Chef is a professional qualification. You get that in culinary school, or you get that from, working like at very low down in the kitchen, and you work your way up. I can call myself a doctor, but I don't as well, because I know one thing. If you are Asian and you say your name is Dr. Khan, everyone will show you, I have a boil in my hand. I have this problem, because they think you're a medical doctor. This is, of course, again, prejudice. So to explain to people you're a doctor-in-law, I just thought I'm never going to use my title. I'm never going to say I'm a doctor, because everyone will just jump to the conclusion that they can show you all the boils in their hands and say, what do you think has happened to my hand? I have no clue. I'm a lawyer. I have no idea what's happened to your hand. But it is, the way that people look at you and see you. And I wanted to leave a mark. I wanted to create a ripple where through food and through this team of, of home cooks, we could break that huge barrier that exists with food in our culture. Every home you go to in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, this also includes a lot of other countries in Africa, in most developing countries, you will go there, you will see the girls getting water, the mother cooking, the mother, the older sister, they're all cooking. You will rarely see a man cooking. How is it then when every restaurant you go to, there's a man cooking? What happened? How is it that we left? We've been left behind. Are we not seen as good enough for us to be able to serve our food and people pay us money, but honor and respect us when we serve them? In my part of the world, often the men will eat first. They don't even ask, what is it left behind for the women to eat? The girls and the women eat later. And I refuse to accept this argument about small spaces. But then you look at our food and you think, my God, our food is so patriarchal. Garam, how we call it, garam rotis, hot rice. So if you're sitting on the table, who's going to make the hot roti? Why is our food this, that it was never designed and created to sit on the table and break bread together? I was lucky. I have a very privileged background. I had a very good childhood. There were people who looked after me, and I could eat on the table with my father and my brother. But I know how lucky and privileged I am. Others were not. And this is unacceptable. And we were always isolated from the table. So it was, for me, food was about trying to explain who I was to people, but it was also about righting a wrong. The wrong was about how women were seen with food. We cooked behind walls. No one saw us. And I remember this, that even I don't remember thanking my grandmother for food she made, because I expected her to be a good cook. I expected when I turned up, my grandmother would shower me with food. How else do we show food, love in our culture? In our culture, at that time, people just, cooked for you. And I'm very lucky. I grew up in that generation where there was no television. I think, just before I left India in 91, Television had just come in. You have one channel. It was to only come on in the evening. It was black and white. Uh, there was no mobile phone. There was no entertainment. Only entertainment you had was eating. So everyone invited each other to eat. And on that table, you talked to each other. No one had phones. So I remember that time. And that's what I tried to recreate when I started off with supper clubs in this house. I'm sitting on my dining table. This was where I began my journey. And I just think that, in this kind of time that you've all been alone and you have been cut off from, your normal activities, this is not, a disaster. You know, I don't know whether this happens to you, but it happens to me. Maybe I have a very bad relationship with printers. But when the printer stops working, you shut it off, you give it a bang, and you put it on again, and it works. This is a creative pause. It is your time to sit back and use this time, use opportunities like this. You may not be inspired by my story, but there'll be other people who will come and, hear the stories of other people. Read the books that you never had time to read. Dream the dreams that now you have the time to dream. And listen to that voice inside, because when you step off the pedal and life is not rushing past you and moving you ahead, that presumption that she's the dark, smart one, she's the fair, slim, pretty one, all of those brackets and labels that people have put on you, those labels, people are not there putting labels. Write your own label, put it on yourself and see, this is where I'm going to be. This is my dream. And I say this a lot, and I can't see the background or know the background, the stories of all of you all, but I didn't burn, my entire culture and my tradition. People see me. I'm always dressed in Asian clothes. I find that comfortable, and I'm accented. I've been living in this country for 30 years. I didn't burn everything of my culture to progress. You don't need to do that. You can stay within your traditions, be comfortable in your skin and who you are. Let other people accept or not accept. You don't need to become like them. You be who you are. Because I'll tell you that the fact that, people always say her food is so authentic. It tastes like my mother made it. I taste love in her food. I didn't try to make my food look Japanese. Indian food is ugly. It's all brown and, whatever. Fine. I don't put edible flowers on it and make it look like a garden. I don't need to. I don't need to make my food look French. I don't need to make my food look anything. This is what my food is. This is who I am. I take your hand and I make you sit down, eat my food, listen to my stories. And in the background, you listen to, Sufi music and Qawwali and, the music that beats in my heart. Listen to that music. And often people stop me. I think they're going to ask me about the food. They tell me, what is that? What is that? What is that? What are they singing? And I feel so happy because they get moved. They don't understand the words, but the rhythm hits them. And there's something that you must remember, that the rhythm will hit them. You just need to follow your own path and stay true to yourself, because this is how you will win. You will win by really being who you are. And this shines because when you are confident from inside, it radiates out. People can see it and they will bow down to who you are because they understand that you are so confident, that you are not afraid. You don't need to mold yourself to become like X, Y, and Z. And, and I think that, if you take anything away from this, I'm going to end now because I know that time is running out. If you take anything away from this, remember this, that, as a child whose birth was lamented, seen as a second daughter as a liability, today everyone in my family says I brought honor to the family. And even though that should not matter to me, it does. So those who felt I was a liability today recognize me as something. I don't hate them. I love them. I understand that there's culture which is very hard. But instead of trying to argue with them and trying to tell them that they're wrong, I just did my own thing. And they had to acknowledge I had made a difference. And this is what you need to remember, that it doesn't happen quickly. It's a very tough road. You need to be very strong. And look what has happened today. I'm sitting at home, my restaurant is closed. I mean, financially, it's been devastating, but I will rise because I have learned how to stand every time I fall. And that is a lesson for life. So, you know, you all are very young. You may not have had hit that first hurdle. When you hit that first hurdle, remember, I am practicing. I'm practicing to be beautiful and excellent and a superstar. This is my practice. Get up, stand up, and go on. Because you'll every time then when you hit a hurdle, it'll hurt less, believe me, and you will get up and be a star. Thank you so much.